Hi everyone. I want to share a story that's as heartbreaking as it is eye-opening. It's a story about betrayal, deception, and ultimately, justice. It involves my uncle Daniel, a hard-working, kind-hearted man in his early 50s who devoted his life to his wife, Kimberly. To everyone on the outside, they seemed like the perfect couple. But what was happening behind the scenes was far from perfect. It was devastating. Kimberly, who was in her late 40s, was beautiful, charming, and ambitious. Daniel adored her, often saying she was the best thing to ever happen to him. He supported her every dream, often at the expense of his own needs. He trusted her so much that 2 years into their marriage, he made the decision to transfer the deed of the home he'd inherited from his parents into her name, convinced it was a gesture of partnership and love. But that decision would come back to haunt him. It started with little things. Kimberly's late nights, vague explanations, and lavish purchases that didn't quite add up. At first, Daniel dismissed his suspicions. He didn't want to believe the woman he loved so deeply could betray him. But then he found the first piece of evidence: an unfamiliar charge on their shared credit card for an expensive weekend getaway. When he questioned Kimberly, she brushed it off with a laugh, claiming it was a work trip. Daniel wanted to trust her, but something felt wrong. A few weeks later, he found another charge, a gift for a man he didn't recognize. Slowly, the truth began to unravel. Kimberly was having an affair with a man nearly 15 years younger than her, and worse, she had been funneling money from their joint account to fund their secret life. When Daniel confronted her, she didn't even deny it. Instead, she coldly told him she was done with this marriage and planned to divorce him. At that moment, he realized the extent of her betrayal. She wasn't just leaving him. She had stripped him of everything he worked for, including the home he grew up in. I couldn't just sit by and watch her destroy him. This wasn't just about a failed marriage anymore. This was about standing up for what was right. And so, I decided to step in. My uncle Daniel has always been a pillar of kindness and generosity. Even as a child, I remember looking up to him, admiring his calm demeanor and selflessness. So when Kimberly came into his life about 5 years ago, we were all happy for him. She seemed like the perfect match. Vibrant, outgoing, and ambitious. Someone who could balance out Daniel's quiet and reserved nature. He adored her, and it wasn't long before he was bending over backward to make her happy. In the first couple of years, their marriage seemed like a dream. Daniel would proudly talk about Kimberly's plans to start her own business and how much he believed in her potential. He supported her every step of the way, from helping her network with people in his circle to investing in her ideas financially. But the real turning point came when Kimberly convinced him to transfer the title of his house, the house he inherited from my grandparents, into both their names. She told him it was a symbol of their partnership, a way to build trust and unity in their marriage. Daniel, ever trusting and eager to please, agreed without hesitation. At first, everything appeared fine. Kimberly would host dinner parties, charm their guests, and talk about the future they were building together. But as time went on, subtle changes began to surface. She started spending more and more time outside the house, claiming she had meetings, networking events, or business trips. Daniel didn't think much of it. He respected her independence and wanted to see her thrive. But then the spending began. Daniel noticed that Kimberly's wardrobe had suddenly upgraded to designer labels. Her jewelry collection expanded, and she was dining at expensive restaurants more often than not. At first, he chalked it up to her newfound confidence and growing social network. But when credit card statements began showing charges he didn't recognize, Daniel's unease grew. He gently confronted her, but Kimberly laughed it off. "It's our money, isn't it?" she said, brushing aside his concerns like they were ridiculous. Still, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He started keeping a closer eye on their finances and eventually discovered that Kimberly had opened a private account in her name. She'd been siphoning money from their joint account for months. Money Daniel had worked hard to save. The breaking point came one night when Daniel decided to surprise Kimberly with dinner at one of her favorite restaurants. When he arrived, he saw her sitting at a corner table with a man who was clearly not a business associate. He was younger, perhaps in his late 20s, dressed casually, and laughing in a way that made Daniel's stomach turn. When Kimberly finally noticed Daniel, she didn't even bother to act surprised. Instead, she stood up, walked over to him, and said with startling coldness, "I'm done playing house, Daniel. I want a divorce." That night, Daniel called me. His voice was shaky, and I could hear the weight of his heartbreak with every word. He explained everything: how he'd been blindsided by her betrayal, how she'd drained their accounts, and how he was now left with nothing but the shell of a home that no longer felt like his. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was the same woman who had smiled at family gatherings, the same woman who had promised to take care of him and build a life together. And now, she had not only broken his heart, but stripped him of his financial security. But Kimberly didn't stop there. Over the next few weeks, she began pushing Daniel to finalize the divorce as quickly as possible. She wanted him out of the house, the very house he had grown up in, so she could sell it and move on with her new life. Daniel was so beaten down emotionally that he considered just giving in to her demands. That's when I stepped in. I couldn't sit back and watch Kimberly walk all over him. Daniel might be kind and gentle, but he deserved justice. He deserved to be treated with respect, not discarded like an afterthought. I started digging, hoping to find something that could help him. And what I found only fueled my determination. Kimberly had been using the money she took from Daniel to finance her new life with this younger man. Trips, gifts, and even a deposit on a luxury apartment. They were all paid for with funds she had no right to. Now, I'm at a crossroads. Part of me wants to take all the evidence we've gathered, bank statements, credit card receipts, and even photos of Kimberly with her lover, and bring it to a lawyer. I want to fight for Daniel's rights and ensure Kimberly doesn't get away with what she's done. But another part of me wonders if I'm overstepping. Daniel is a grown man, and this is his marriage, his life. Should I be the one leading the charge? What if my involvement makes things worse for him? That's why I'm sharing this story with all of you. I need your advice. If you were in my shoes, what would you do? Would you push Daniel to fight back and reclaim what's rightfully his, even if it means dragging this battle into court? Or would you step back and let him handle things in his own way, even if it means he might lose everything? I know there's no easy answer, but I can't shake the feeling that doing nothing isn't an option. Daniel has been there for everyone in this family, always putting others before himself. Now, it's his turn to have someone fight for him. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Your advice could make all the difference in what happens next. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. I'll be updating you all soon with what we decide to do. First of all, I want to thank each and every one of you for the overwhelming support and advice you've shared in the comments on my last video. It's been truly heartwarming to see how many of you care about what my Uncle Daniel is going through. I've spent the past few days reading through every comment, and I want to highlight some of the most helpful suggestions and insights you've shared. Many of you agree that Daniel needs to take legal action immediately. This was by far the most common piece of advice, with several of you pointing out that Kimberly's behavior is not just unethical, but likely illegal. A lot of you mentioned that consulting with a lawyer should be his top priority to ensure he can reclaim his assets and protect himself from further manipulation. On the other hand, some of you encouraged me to confront Kimberly directly. You believe that calling her out on her behavior could be a way to hold her accountable and prevent her from walking away without consequences. While this approach feels satisfying to imagine, I worry it might escalate the situation and cause more harm than good. Finally, there's a significant group of you who believe that Daniel's emotional well-being is what matters most right now. You've reminded me that no amount of financial recovery can truly heal the betrayal he's experienced, and that my focus should be on supporting him emotionally, helping him regain his confidence, and showing him that he's not alone in this fight. Here are just a few of the comments that really stood out to me. Justice for all. Daniel needs to hire a lawyer ASAP. Kimberly's actions are a clear case of financial exploitation. If she's funneling money into a private account and planning to sell his family home, that's a major red flag. The sooner he acts, the better chance he has of stopping her. Don't wait. She's probably already planning her next move. Speak up, Sam. I think you should confront her. Bullies like Kimberly thrive on getting away with things because no one stands up to them. Even if it's uncomfortable, calling her out might make her think twice about what she's doing. Plus, Daniel needs to see that someone has his back. Please don't forget about your uncle's emotional health in all of this. He's probably feeling broken and humiliated, and what he needs most is someone to remind him of his worth. Whether or not he decides to fight Kimberly legally, he'll need your support to rebuild his life. Sometimes emotional recovery is more important than financial recovery. As you can see, your feedback has been both insightful and diverse. Each comment has given me something to think about, and I've been discussing these ideas with Daniel. What's clear to me now is that this situation is far from simple. There's no single solution that will fix everything, but I'm determined to help Daniel navigate this as best as I can. Your advice has already helped me narrow down the next steps, and I've started reaching out to legal professionals while also keeping a close eye on Daniel's emotional state. I'd love to hear more of your thoughts. Do you think focusing on legal action first is the right move? Or should I confront Kimberly directly before things escalate further? Keep the advice coming. I'm so grateful for this amazing community. Your support means the world to us. First off, I want to thank everyone who has been following this journey and providing such valuable advice. Your support has truly made a difference, not just for me, but especially for my Uncle Daniel. After reading through all of your comments, I knew it was time to take action. Daniel might be gentle and reserved, but he deserves better than what Kimberly has put him through. With some encouragement, I managed to convince Daniel to meet with a lawyer. It wasn't easy. He's always been the kind of person who avoids conflict, but I reminded him that this isn't about revenge, it's about protecting himself and reclaiming what's rightfully his. We brought every piece of evidence we could gather to the meeting. Bank statements showing the suspicious transfers, credit card records of extravagant purchases, and even screenshots of texts between Kimberly and her lover. The lawyer was both sympathetic and direct. While transferring the house into both their names was a legal challenge, it wasn't the end of the road. She explained that if we could prove Kimberly acted in bad faith, using deceit and manipulation to gain control over Daniel's assets, we had a solid case. The key was showing a pattern of behavior that demonstrated her intent to exploit him. But just when I thought we had a clear plan, something else came to light. While digging deeper into Kimberly's finances, I uncovered a shocking detail. She wasn't just funneling money into her own private account. She'd also been transferring significant amounts into her lover's account. Trips, gifts, and even a deposit on a luxury apartment. It was all funded by Daniel's hard-earned money. I could feel my blood boiling as I pieced it all together. Kimberly hadn't just betrayed Daniel emotionally, she'd used him as a bank to build a life with someone else. With this new evidence, we filed the legal paperwork. It felt like a victory just to get to this point, but the road ahead is anything but easy. The first court hearing is scheduled for next month, and Daniel is understandably nervous. To be honest, so am I. Kimberly has already hired a lawyer with a reputation for being ruthless, and it's clear she's ready to fight tooth and nail to keep everything she's taken. Adding to the tension, Kimberly hasn't exactly been keeping a low profile. Word has gotten back to us through mutual acquaintances that she's been boasting about how she's untouchable and how Daniel doesn't stand a chance against her. The audacity of it all is infuriating. It's as if she believes she's above accountability, and that only makes me more determined to see this through. Daniel, on the other hand, is struggling with a mix of emotions. He feels humiliated, angry, and exhausted all at once. He keeps asking me if it's worth it, if fighting this battle will truly make a difference. I keep telling him that it will, that standing up for himself is the first step toward healing. But deep down, I know how hard this is for him. I've also been thinking about the advice some of you shared in the comments about focusing on Daniel's emotional recovery. As much as I want to see Kimberly held accountable, I don't want this fight to consume him. He's been through enough already. Part of me wonders if we should try to settle this quietly to avoid dragging it out any longer than necessary. But then I think about everything she's done, the lies, the manipulation, the blatant disregard for Daniel's kindness, and I feel like letting her off the hook would be a mistake. What makes this even more complicated is how Kimberly seems to thrive on the chaos she's created. She's made it clear she's not afraid of a fight, and I worry that settling might embolden her to repeat this behavior with someone else in the future. If we don't expose her actions now, who's to say she won't do this to another unsuspecting partner down the line? So here we are, preparing for a legal battle that feels like a David and Goliath situation. I'm doing everything I can to support Daniel, helping him organize documents, accompanying him to meetings, and just being there to listen when he needs to vent. But I can't do this alone, which is why I'm turning to all of you again. What do you think we should do next? Should we push forward with everything we've got and expose Kimberly's actions in court, no matter how messy it gets? Or should we explore the possibility of settling quietly, to spare Daniel the emotional toll of a prolonged legal battle? Your insights have been invaluable so far, and I truly believe that this community can help us make the right decision. Please share your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading every single one. And thank you again for standing with us during this incredibly difficult time. Your support means more than words can express. I continue to be blown away by the incredible support and thoughtful advice you've all shared with us. Reading your comments has not only given me clarity, but has also helped give Daniel the strength he desperately needs right now. He's still nervous about the road ahead, but your words have reminded him, and me, that he's not alone in this fight. Many of you have expressed strong opinions on the best course of action, and I wanted to highlight some of the most compelling suggestions. One of the recurring pieces of advice is to expose Kimberly's behavior publicly, both in court and in the community. This approach resonates with me because Kimberly's lies and manipulation have gone unchecked for so long. I agree with many of you that if we stay silent, it might empower her to do this to someone else in the future. @TruthWins commented, "Expose her in court. People like Kimberly thrive on deception, and the only way to stop her is by bringing everything out into the open. It's not just about getting justice for Daniel. It's about holding her accountable so she doesn't destroy someone else's life the way she did his. She needs to know there are consequences for her actions." At the same time, others have raised valid concerns about the emotional toll this could take on Daniel. Prolonging the fight might cause more harm than good, especially for someone like him who values peace and avoids conflict. Healing First shared, "I think mediation might be a good middle ground. Daniel has already been through so much, and sometimes settling quietly can bring closure faster. Just make sure the settlement is fair and protects his future. Fighting in court could drag this out for years, and that could be emotionally exhausting for him." Both of these perspectives are important, and I can see the merits in each approach. On one hand, public exposure feels like the right thing to do to ensure justice is served. On the other hand, I don't want to overlook Daniel's emotional well-being in the pursuit of revenge. Daniel and I are still weighing our options, but one thing is clear. This community has given us the courage to take the next steps. Your stories, your advice, and your encouragement have been a beacon of hope during a very dark time. What do you think? Should we prioritize Daniel's emotional recovery and seek a quiet settlement? Or should we go all in and make sure Kimberly's actions are exposed, no matter how long it takes? Let me know in the comments. I'll be reading every word. After months of legal battles, long nights spent poring over documents, and countless emotional highs and lows, we finally reached a resolution. The courtroom, a space that had once felt so intimidating and cold, became a place where truth prevailed, and for the first time in what felt like ages, justice was served. The judge ruled in Daniel's favor. It wasn't easy, but with the help of our incredible lawyer and the mountain of evidence we gathered, we were able to prove that Kimberly had manipulated Daniel into transferring the house and assets under false pretenses. The evidence, bank statements, text messages, and even witness testimonies painted a clear picture of her deceit. Kimberly's charm and lies, which had shielded her for so long, finally crumbled under the weight of the truth. Hearing the judge order the house to be transferred back to Daniel was like a weight lifting off all of our shoulders. But that wasn't the only victory. Kimberly was also required to pay restitution for the money she siphoned off into her private and her lover's accounts. The justice system acknowledged the emotional and financial damage she caused, and for that, I'll always be grateful. As for Kimberly, the consequences of her actions came swiftly. Her lover, the same man she had drained Daniel's finances to support, left her almost immediately after the court's decision. I can't say I was surprised. Once her money and influence dried up, he had no reason to stick around. Kimberly is now facing multiple lawsuits for fraud and breach of trust, not just from Daniel but from others who she had wronged during her schemes. Watching her facade crumble was bittersweet. Part of me felt a sense of triumph knowing she was finally being held accountable, but another part of me couldn't help but feel a twinge of sadness. How could someone choose to destroy their life and the lives of others for such shallow gains? As for Daniel, this victory has been the start of a new chapter for him. After years of being manipulated and taken advantage of, he's finally finding his footing again. The first thing he did after reclaiming the house was to host a small family dinner. It wasn't extravagant, just close friends and family gathered in the home he fought so hard to keep. For the first time in years, I saw him smile, not out of politeness, but genuine happiness. He's also started building a supportive community around him. Through the process of the court case, Daniel met others who had gone through similar experiences. And it's been incredible to see him form connections with people who truly understand him. He's joined a local group for people rebuilding their lives after toxic relationships, and I can already see the positive impact it's having on him. But beyond the legal and emotional victories, this experience has left me with a lot to think about. The entire ordeal taught me, and Daniel, a lesson I don't think either of us will ever forget. Trust is earned, not demanded. Kimberly's charm blinded Daniel to her true intentions, and it's a reminder to all of us to look deeper, to pay attention to actions rather than just words. What struck me the most, though, was Daniel's resilience. Despite everything he went through, he never lost his kindness. He never became bitter or angry, even when he had every reason to. Instead, he chose to focus on moving forward, on reclaiming his life and his peace. As for me, this journey has been exhausting, but also eye-opening. I've learned the importance of standing by the people you love, even when the odds seem insurmountable. There were moments when I doubted whether we could win this fight, but the support from this community, from our family, and from Daniel's newfound network kept us going. Now, Daniel's future is brighter than it's been in years. He's talked about taking a trip, something he hasn't done in forever, to visit the mountains where he and my grandparents used to camp. He says it's time to reconnect with the parts of his life that brought him joy, and I couldn't agree more. This chapter is finally closing, and while the scars of what happened may never fully fade, they don't define Daniel. He's stronger than ever, and he's rebuilding his life with grace and determination. To everyone who has followed this journey, shared your thoughts, and offered your support, thank you. Your words, advice, and encouragement have meant the world to both me and Daniel. Before I go, I want to leave you with this. If you or someone you love is going through a situation like Daniel's, don't be afraid to stand up for what's right. It may feel overwhelming, but justice is possible, and healing is within reach. What about you? Have you ever had to help someone you love rebuild their life? Or maybe you've been through something similar yourself. I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this one. Thank you for being part of this incredible community. I'll see you in the next video. This story has been one of the most difficult yet rewarding experiences to share. It's a story about betrayal, resilience, and ultimately, redemption. What happened to Daniel isn't just a cautionary tale about trusting the wrong person. It's also a testament to the power of standing up for yourself, even when it feels like the odds are stacked against you. Daniel's journey has reminded me of something deeply profound. Kindness is not a weakness. For so long, Kimberly took advantage of Daniel's generosity, mistaking his good nature for naivety. But in the end, it was that same kindness, paired with the courage to fight back, that allowed him to reclaim not just his home, but his sense of self-worth. Justice isn't always swift, and the road to get there is often grueling. There were moments in this process when it felt easier to walk away, to let things go for the sake of peace. But walking away from what's right doesn't bring true peace. It only leaves you with regret. Daniel's decision to fight back, supported by all of you and the people who care about him, has shown that standing up for what's right is always worth the effort. As I reflect on everything that's happened, I'm struck by how much I've learned from this community as well. Your words of encouragement, your shared experiences, and your heartfelt advice have been a light during a very dark time. You've shown us that even when it feels like the world is against you, there's a network of people who care, who want to see justice served. This story isn't just Daniel's, it's a lesson for all of us. Life will throw challenges our way. Sometimes people will take advantage of our trust, and sometimes the road to recovery will feel impossible. But no matter how hard it gets, remember that your voice matters, your actions matter, and standing up for yourself or someone you love can change everything. So now I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced a situation where you or someone you care about had to fight for justice? How did you handle it? Or maybe you've seen kindness mistaken for weakness and found a way to turn the situation around. Let's keep this conversation going in the comments. Your stories, advice, and experiences could help someone else who's watching this video and feeling lost. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking the video and sharing it with someone who might need a little inspiration today. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to join this incredible community. Here on AGS Stories, we're all about sharing real-life lessons, celebrating resilience, and learning from each other's experiences. Thank you for being part of this journey. It's been an emotional ride, but it's also a reminder of how much we can accomplish when we come together. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll dive into another story that's sure to make you think, reflect, and maybe even inspire you to take action in your own life. Until then, take care and remember, kindness is strength, and justice is always worth fighting for.